In this video, we're going to discuss the definition of a function. What is a function? A function is a special relationship in which every x value in the relationship corresponds to only one y value. For example, let's say I have the x values of 1, 2, 3, and 4. The x value of 1 will correspond to a y of 6. An x value of 2 will correspond to a y value of 7. An x value of 3 will correspond to a y value of 8. And an x value of 4 will correspond to a y value of 9. This is a function. Let's look at something that's not a function. Something that's not a function. Every x value corresponds to more than one y value. For example, the x value of 1 would correspond to a y value of 6, and the x value of 1 would also correspond to a y value of 7. The x equals 1 corresponds to y equals 6 and to y equals 7. An easy way to visualize this is in a diagram, a mapping diagram. Let's say these are my x values, and these are my y values. Let's say I have an x value of 1, an x value of 2, and an x value of 3. I have a y value of 4, and a y value of 5, a y value of 6. If 1 corresponds to 4, 2 corresponds to 5, and 3 corresponds to 6, then this is a function. Let's look at something that's not a function. Say these are my x values, these are my y values. I have x values of 1, 2, and 3, and y values of 4, 5, and 6. If my x value of 1 corresponds to 4, and my x value of 1 also corresponds to 5, even if my x value of 3 corresponds to 6, my x value of 2 only corresponds to 5. Because this x value of 1 corresponds to both 4 and 5, this relation is not a function. However, every y value can correspond to more than one x value. So let's say I have x values of 1 and 2, and I have y values of 4 and 5. If the y equals 5 corresponds to 1, and the y equals 5 also corresponds to 2, that's okay, that's still a function. Something that would not be a function would be if 1 corresponds to 4, and 1 corresponds to 5. Let's look at this graphically. Let's first look at some relation that is a function. If we have the x value of 1 and a y value of 1, then we have a point over here. If we have an x value of 2 and a y value of 1, we have a point over here. This is still a function, even though we have two of the same y values. This line is still a function because we are allowed to have one y value that corresponds to two different x values. Now let's look at something that's not a function. Let's say I have an x value of 1 and a y value of 2. And let's say I have the same x value of 1, but now I have a y value of 3. This vertical line is not a function because we have one x value corresponding to two y values. Whenever you have any graph, an easy way to figure out if something is a function is by testing the graph to see if it passes the vertical line test. The vertical line test is, let's say I have a function, say that's my function. The vertical line test is, if I could draw a straight line down through every single point on this function, on this graph, without my vertical line passing through the graph twice or more than once, then it's a function. So this blue graph is a function because wherever I draw my orange line, it's only going to pass through the blue graph in one place, no matter where I draw the line. Let's look at something that's not a function. Let's say I have a graph like this, and I'm going to draw in pink this time. If I draw my pink line over here, I pass through the red graph over here and over here. I pass through the graph twice, so this is not a function. Even though over here I could pass through the graph only once, it's still not a function because there are places on the graph where I'll pass through the graph more than once when I draw a vertical line. Another important thing to notice is, let's say you have a piecewise function. Your graph looks like this. There's a closed circle over here, so it includes this point. and an open circle over here, so it does not include that point. This graph will pass the vertical line test because the orange line is really only passing through the blue graph at one point by the closed circle. This open circle means that the function does not have this value of y is equal to 3 at x is equal to 5. It only has, at x is equal to 5, the only y value is 0. But let's say we have a graph like this, another piecewise graph, the closed circle over here, and a closed circle over here. This function would not pass the vertical line test because it passes through the function twice, over here and over here. So the x value of -4 has two y values. It has a y value of +3 and a y value of +5. This is different than the other graph, than the one that did pass the vertical line test, the blue graph, because the x value of 5 only had a y value of 0 and it did not have a y value of 3.